Hey guys, this is Bruce, and welcome to another episode of ConvoCourses. I'm trying to do these more frequently by focusing in on just comments. Sometimes when we do these lives, I get too lost in the chat, and the chat is just kind of a different. It's a different feel. It's a different rhythm. So I'm gonna focus on just comments on TikTok, on YouTube, on whatever platform. Let me just answer this question here I got about information system security officer. Actually, the question was about cybersecurity analyst versus information system security engineers. And we'll kind of compare them together. And this is based off of my own personal experience. But let me see if I'm forgetting any other comments before I get to that one. Let me see. Somebody rated, I'll get to this one another time, where somebody rated the certifications. We'll touch on these a little bit later. Okay, here we go right here. So this question, this was an engineer who disagreed with me, and that's fine. You know, I was just speaking from my own personal experience. But what they said was, it's not exactly correct. So, in what they're talking about or referring to, I did this video way back 2 years ago where I was talking about cybersecurity engineers versus cybersecurity analysts, and my take on it was that in this video was that in my experience when I was in the position where they called me an engineer, an information security engineer, but I was doing all documentation or I was doing a little bit of analyst work. So what I was saying is that the position is defined by the organization. So they'll sometimes call you an engineer, but you're doing GRC stuff, or they'll call you an engineer and you're doing analyst stuff, or you're actually implementing, which is what you would think an engineer does, right? I mean, and then the place I'm working in now, it's just like that. The engineer is actually the person who has hands on, making sure that uh, making sure that a seam is working properly, making sure that the infrastructure, the support infrastructure type stuff you would think an engineer does, rather than doing some analyst work where you're just looking at the actual data coming in and evaluating it. So anyway, let's get back to his comment here. He says that it's not exactly correct. He says a security engineer is someone who implements the security control, the security solutions and platforms. And I would actually agree with what he's saying here. You would think that that's what an engineer does, right? When it's properly uh, when it's properly done. We go through documentation over and over, but but we do a lot of administration and implementation work. Example, if you had a security architect has chosen a certain SIEM solution, and it's up to the engineer to set up the servers, to set up the SIEM and integrate it. And then he says that the analyst is like looking at the dashboards and looking at the ticketing tools that's inside of it and analyzing the actual data, whatever alerts and triggers. So yeah, actually, you know what? I do agree with what he's saying in the fact that that's what it's supposed to be. But my argument in my original video from 2 years ago is I stand by it, which is I've been in positions where they called me an ISSE or a security engineer, and I did purely GRC work and very little implementation. And then I've had it to where they're calling me an analyst, but I'm doing some engineering work. So that's I was just telling the truth about my own personal experience, but I see what he's saying, and that makes a lot of sense. So I'm not disagreeing, but at the same time, at other organizations I've been at like the current place I'm working at right now, I'm in an ISO position, and all I'm doing is coordinating I'm coordinating with people. I do some analyst work, working with, say, the firewall people to make sure that we're at a certain security posture. I'm doing GRC work. I'm writing documents. I'm doing plan of action and milestones. I'm doing a little bit of vulnerability management type stuff. That kind of thing is what you would think an ISO does, continuous monitoring, things like that. But then every now and then I have to call on an ISSE or information system security engineer, and they're more technical. They're like, okay, what's going on with our SIEM? Is there something wrong? Can you go in and fix that SIEM? Or you can work with the architect to actually get it working properly? It's more of a support, like he's saying here, and that's where you disagree with me. that's kind of what you would imagine an engineer is more hands-on. They're more working more with the infrastructure. They're more working more with the actual technology, making sure it works properly. Or if there's a control we can't figure out, we'll bring them in there and they'll be hands-on fixing things directly. So that's kind of it's very strict in the rules that I'm doing now, and I'm working like with the government. So that's what I would imagine that an ISSE is supposed to do. So I don't know. It's it is what it is, any kind of job you get in, you would they can name they can name the position whatever they want and give it whatever kind of definition. They try to stick with, if it's in the federal government, there's certain guidelines that they use to describe the roles, and there's certain skill sets that they want. So it's a little bit more structured. But then you get outside in the private sector and they kind of go crazy, where they're talking about, they'll make it like light source engineer or something, or imagineer. So those make up words sometimes, or make up, they don't really have a rhyme or reason sometimes why they do certain things. They try to match it with their branding or something. If it's a company about lights, they'll say you're a light engineer or something, they'll make up some name. But yeah, so that's just been my experience with it. And it also, another thing is, it kind of depends on what you're working with. Like, I've been in places where we have SIEM technology and we have IPSs and IDSs, and we have an engineer for each one of those, like a security engineer who's working on each one. And there's that one person specializes on this one system, and one guy. And then I've had some where they kind of have to know every single system, and that's their job, is to go and make sure everything is working properly. So that's it for this one, guys. I will see you guys on the next one, and we will do more stuff. Like, maybe I'll actually read the actual comments and everything in the actual chat. That's coming up soon, so stay tuned for more. If you guys are interested in learning more, if you guys want to follow and kind of join in this conversation, go to ConvoCourses.com. You can go to, actually have a place where you can go on Discord, talk to us directly. And it's not just me, it's a whole community of people. So if you have any questions, you can ask all of us. All right, guys, I'm out.